Hello everyone, welcome to Fraser Not the Exorcist, and today I'll be reviewing The Prowler, a 1980s slasher film that I watched recently. Let's start things off with a basic plot summary. Basically, in as it's explained and shown in the beginning of the film, a not Vietnam, a World War II veteran, as he's returning home, I think, receives a letter from his girlfriend back home stating that she's breaking up with him because she just can't take it anymore. She's been waiting all this time for him to come back, but she wants to be young and free and live her life, basically not being tied down to, him surviving a war, kind of holding her back, basically. And this devastates him to the point of making him go crazy because, of course, with the whole PTSD of returning home from war, which unfortunately happens to many soldiers and veterans of wars. He comes home, and with the mixture of the PTSD and his girlfriend leaving him, that kind of traumatizes him, and he goes, not on a murder spree, but he commits a gruesome murder, basically. Then 30 years later, that murder scars the whole community forever, right? And basically, right after that, the girl's daughter, the girl who was in the couple that got murdered, he basically bans school dances, or like proms for this specific college. For college in for the college in that town. He bans dances and proms forever. But of course, like 30 years later, the ban is lifted, and they're finally allowed to have proms again after 30 years, right? And the killer, who survived that whole 30 years because he was never caught, he comes back and goes on a murder spree. That's basically the basic plot of The Prowler. Now, just a personal thing for a moment. The thing that attracted me to The Prowler specifically, in terms of wanting to watch it, is I just kind of came across this movie that I didn't know the title of, like like back in the days, like most movies, and I had no idea what the title was. I just kind of saw it starting, and it interested me from the beginning with the whole letter of the girl breaking up with him, and then the whole scene at the prom with the kids talking, and then this couple kind of steals off to lovers lane, and then they get gruesomely murdered by this guy in, like, basically all, what's the thing called, like, is it camouflage or camo? Yeah, he's in like this, like, full green camo suit. He's got I think it's I'm not sure what it's called. Like like the thing they put on their heads, but his is like with like the two strings that you can tighten like the front with. So his is tightened all the way so that you can't see his face, and he's wearing like a normal war helmet, which is a very slick look. Really, it's a really good look on the villain. But yeah, so and they basically get murdered gruesomely by this guy, but and that's basically what interested me in the film, just seeing that opening murder, and just the way how the whole scene was set up from the beginning, leading up to the murder and how the murder happened. It really interested me, um and it just made me, and at the time I must have been doing something, because I didn't want to watch the movie immediately. I just kind of saved it, found out the name, wrote it down, and just kind of saved it for a long time, almost like a whole year, I think, before I actually decided to sit down and watch the film. And then one day I just had time, and I remembered how much I liked the beginning. So I was like, oh yeah, let me just watch this entire movie. It's not long. Let me just watch the whole movie. And I was totally disappointed in the experience of watching The Prowler, because it just never lives up to that beginning, to that opening scene overall, because like it's surprising to me just how little happens in this movie. All right, because it's got this great opening scene, but then it just leads into this just regular cliche, just downright boring slasher film. Like I found it hard to just keep my eyes open, even though I was like kind of moving around. I wasn't laying in bed watching this movie. I was kind of moving around watching it, right? So I should have been alert. I should have seen everything. I should have understood everything, but there was just so little going on. And it got so boring. It just got so boring because like the well, it's like it's a low budget 80s slasher movie. All right, so the acting's it's passable. It's okay. It's expected. It's decent, but it's just not much to it. It has no meat on the bones. It's just the absolute basic of a slasher film. All right, because after the opening scene and and the kids are all excited to finally have a prom, to like be the ones to have a prom. Since the past 30 years there hasn't been a prom. And then and then the killings just start happening again, and they kind of notice it, but they don't really notice it. And then I don't know, just stuff just happen. It's just like the whole movie exists just to be a kill count. Just it like that channel on YouTube, that the kill count, the dead meat channel that does those kill counts of mostly slasher movies. It was made for that kind of thing. It was made for that because there is nothing going on, nothing interesting at all that is going on. Like Vicky Dawson, bless her heart, tries her absolute best to hold things together. She tries, she's putting in all this emotion and stuff. She's like she's really trying to make this role work and be this thing. She's trying to make a thing happen, but it can't happen because there's nothing going on. All right, it's got all your old cliches. It's got the mentally challenged guy who turns out to be, who's either supposed to be the killer, like they want us to think he's the killer, so they have him show up at these weird times in the movie to make us think that he's the killer. But obviously, since we watch horror movies, obviously he's not the killer, right? So we just kind of roll that guy out right away, and just like, and this movie does the absolute worst job at at hiding the killer, because as soon as this one character disappears, you know immediately, which is like a what, like a half hour into the movie, maybe even less than that. But as soon as this character disappears, you know that he's a killer. You know that he is the killer. There's no way that he's not the killer. You know how horror movies work. You know how cliche they can get, and this is the most cliche horror movie ever. All right. It got in pretty early in the slasher thing, because, because Halloween kind of started it. I'm not sure if Halloween is like the first slasher movie, but it's just kind of the one that kind of kicked things off properly, right? And this movie is just cliche after cliche. Honestly, it's just kills. It's it's just there for the simple pleasure of horror fans. Its only existence is to fulfill those simple pleasures. All right, you like tits and ass. It gives you some tits and ass. You want some decent kills. It gives you decent kills, but decent kills with blood. You want decent kills with pretty gruesome blood. Okay, sure, we can give you that, because I've never been the type to watch a horror movie because it's got like the most gruesome, just shocking, bloodiest kills ever. I've never been that kind of guy, and looking at the opening scene, I thought that it would have had more in its mind, but it didn't. But even if all that it had on its mind was just tits and ass and killing, I would have been fine with that. I don't mind watching that at all. But you need to have something. You need to have something more than that, because just that at its bare minimum, just happening, isn't enough to hold a movie together. It's not enough to make it interesting. It's not enough to make it any more than just a cash grab of a film. And that's all this movie feels like. It's just a cash grab of a film, because there's probably like a million movies out there just like this one. All right, it just takes everything that an interesting slasher has, because it reminded me a lot of what's it called again, I'm not sure how many of you have seen Sorority Row, like the recent one, the one in like '09 or like 2010 or something like that. But it really reminded me of that film, and really made me see how good that film is, because that's a really great example of a horror movie that doesn't just have tits and ass and killings. It's got great characters. It's not like an interesting mystery. It's just well done formula, right? It's well done, fast paced formula, right? And that's all people want out of a good slasher film. That's all a good slasher. Well, not all a good slasher film is, because it can be more if it wants to be more, but that's all we expect of a good slasher. Is it to be well done formula? All right, good kills, um, interesting, well done villain, which this does have an interesting villain, but he's just not used to any sort of effect. He's not he's barely he's not anything. He's just there to have an interesting look, and that's it. Because he's got a nice decent backstory, but it's not enough. It's not much of anything to write home about, right? And that's just the movie's problem in a nutshell. It's just the bare minimum. It's boring. It's like about half of this movie, if not more, is just characters walking around, kind of looking at crime scenes. Well, not even kind of looking at crime scenes. The movie is basically just there waiting for the killer to show up. Basically, waiting for him to make a kill. But just kind of, but not even waiting for him to make a kill. It's waiting for him to. It's it's just waiting for him. That's all it is. The movie is waiting for a killer. That's it. Because there's barely any killing going on anyway. There's like what, 5 deaths in this whole movie. I mean, like scenes of deaths, not like the actual people, but like 5 deaths in the whole movie. And the kills are decently like well done, and it's got some nice, like, well, yeah, no, that wasn't nice, honestly. Yeah, I was, because I was about to commend the atmosphere of the film, but and I did see some critics commending the atmosphere, like it's got this nice foggy lighting and an atmosphere, like sort of like a dreamlike atmosphere about it. But I disagree. It doesn't have that. It feels like it's trying to have that, because like just this fog and this certain kind of lighting doesn't make it feel like a dream. It needs to have charisma. It needs to have some sort of hook to it, and the movie just doesn't have that. It's just flat killing, flat tits, flat ass, just flat blood, just flat. It's just flat. It's just the actual bare minimum. The only thing I can give it credit for is Vicky trying her absolute hardest to hold this thing together, because no one else is interesting. Well, of course the killer's sort of interesting, but that's just his look. He's not interesting. He has an interesting look, but he's not actually interesting, which is like the worst thing ever, right? So yeah, it's just a predictable, possible, not not horrible, slasher film. That's basically it. So if you're, hey, just look, if you're into the absolute, just bare minimum, not bad but certainly not good slasher film, all right, and you don't mind a boring atmosphere of just like characters who barely look like they're interested in the darn thing to begin with, who have nothing to do other than just stand around waiting to be killed or waiting to show some tits and ass, then yeah, then this film should do it for you. You know that it's got a nice opening scene. It's got a nice lead actress. It's got an interesting look for its villain, not an actual good villain, but yeah, I don't hate the film, but I certainly don't like it at all. So my advice is to just skip this one, honestly. I give it a loose 5. I could give it less, but I but as I said, I don't hate it. I just don't feel strongly about it at all. It's not much of anything at all. So it's just a disappointment, honestly, and it barely made any money. So even though it had a budget of around $1 million, but made less than $1 million. So because they couldn't find a major distributor, which for the first time ever I can actually understand a film not finding a major distributor, which is wild. So yeah, it's nothing. You honestly, I don't recommend it. I recommend that you skip it. So yeah, that those are my thoughts on the Prowler. Disappointing, but hey, that's, they can all be good films. So yeah, that's been me. This has been First Night the Exorcist. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know when I upload next. And I'll see you all next time. God bless.